join. Could I have everyone please try to take their seats? We're going to start this, otherwise you will not get out on time. Palmer, go sit down. If I could have everyone, please. Oh my God, Ortis just walked in. Good morning. Good morning. Oh, thank God, I thought you guys were asleep. Welcome, mayors, and welcome everyone from the business community. I'm Bob Foster. I'm the mayor of Long Beach, California, and I'm chair of the Business Council. This will be my last meeting as chair of the Business Council since I'm going to leave office in about 25 days. And I just want to say a few on a personal note. This has been a great experience for me to be part of the Conference of Mayors. This Business Council has been a great experience. I've loved every minute of it. I am ready to go on and do some other things. I actually thought I was and had proposed to run for a third term. But when I heard that Doug Palmer was going to be a co-chair of the Business Council, I decided I am not running for a third term. Just couldn't stand that. You're welcome, Doug. So it has been a good run, and I encourage all the mayors in the room to become active in this organization, and I will still be active trying to bring businesses into this organization. I do think it's great for business and it's great for the country. So first of all, I want to thank the Bezos Family Foundation for sponsoring this breakfast, and Jackie Bezos, who I think is over here. I want to thank her for sponsoring this. You'll hear more about the Bezos family and the foundation in a moment. I would now like to bring up our CEO and Executive Director, Tom Cochran, to give a few remarks and introduce our new steering committee co-chairs. Tom.
Good morning, everyone. And thank you, Mayor Foster. You got 25 more days, and you can continue to help us, and thank you for what you've done to strengthen the Business Council. And we're looking forward to you bringing more members after you leave. I just want to say one more time how important the Business Council is to the Conference of Mayors. It's become an integral part of our organization. And when we went through this recession, I think we need to really thank the business community and the mayors who worked so hard to produce jobs. Because you really, when times were down, it were the mayors and the local businesses that make it happen, and you did. So I think sometimes we forget that. You read the stats, you read the economic sections of the newspapers, but we also know what you're doing, and we appreciate it very much, the way you work with us and also the way you work with our mayors each day. So we've come a long way. We're strong. We have 14, Jerry? 14 members, I think. And I'd like to recognize 14 new Business Council members, and I'll ask you to stand. Airlines for America, America Gaming Association, Best Buy, Inc., Bezos Family Foundation, Dart Container Corporation, Energy Management Resources, Inc., Enterprise Holdings, Mayors Against Illegal Guns, People for Bikes, PetSmart, Protero, Inc., The Bully Project, The Weather Company, and Uber Technologies, Inc. And then I'd like to thank the Platinum Partners, and I think you know what Platinum is. It's very fine. You know, Platinum is better than diamonds, and diamonds are girl's best friend. Okay, American Beverage Association, American Management Services, Inc., Citi, Colonial Life, DuPont, Google, Great West, Linebarger, Gauguin, Blair, and Sampson, Phillips, The Bully Project, the Scott's Miracle Grow Company, U.S. Communities, Walmart, Waste Management, and Wells Fargo. Thank you very much. I want to thank all of the Business Council members who have been active with us. And I want to introduce now our co-chair for remarks, Mr. Donovan Pepper from Walgreens. Donovan.
Great, thank you, Tom. Thank you. Good morning, good morning. I apologize, I didn't realize I was speaking first before my other co-chair, but I guess we've changed the program up a little bit. And of course, it never fails when you have to speak in the morning and certainly be prepared. I ended up spilling coffee on my tie this morning, so thanks, Starbucks, wherever you're at. Sorry, no, thank you for getting me up this morning too, Starbucks. Anyway, good morning, and thank you very much, Tom. And on behalf of the Business Council and the Steering Committee, I want to welcome you all here. I want to thank you very much for your support of the Business Council, and particularly for the Steering Committee. We've had a wonderful year this past year. As Tom just mentioned, we've welcomed new members to the Business Council, and it's been just a wonderful partnership that we have here with the U.S. Conference of Mayors. I know my co-chair, my good friend Tom Phillips, will probably have a little more to say, so I don't want to steal his thunder, but I want to just say a couple things real quick with respect to the Business Council. I want to say thank you to the members that have been active and participating in our process. I want to thank you, mayors, for your recognition of the Business Council and your recognition of the businesses that operate, that work, live, and employ people in your communities. So we appreciate that. You know, from a Walgreens perspective, I want to say greetings on behalf of our 248,000 employees across the country. We operate in all 50 states. We appreciate the support that you have given our company with respect to our ability to open retail stores, to be the healthcare destination for your communities, for your residents, and your members. So we certainly appreciate that, and we appreciate the ongoing support since 1901 of your communities to allow us to operate and provide needed healthcare services to your communities. We know we certainly wouldn't be successful without your support and our partnership, and we've certainly enjoyed that, and we appreciate that. I want to acknowledge Mayor Foster, who is leaving, who has been a wonderful chairman of our Business Council, who we certainly acknowledge him and want to once again give him a round of applause for all his years in office. And without further ado, I'm going to stop here because I know my good friend Tom Phillips, my other co-chair, will have some wonderful things to say to you and share with you on his way out the door, so to speak, with respect to being a co-chair. But it's been a pleasure and honor to serve with Tom Phillips from Siemens. He's a great friend and certainly someone, if you haven't had an opportunity to meet, certainly have an opportunity to meet him. But again, on behalf of the Business Council, on behalf of Walgreens, thank you very much for your support. Sure, okay. All right, I did.
Okay, let's bring up Tom Phillips. That's the way they tie it. That's the way they gave it to me.
I think we're in a love fest here. What do you think? Yeah, it's pretty good. So I'm going to pretty much echo what my friend and colleague Donovan said. On behalf of the Business Council and the Steering Committee, I want to welcome you all here. We love events like this. I was trying to figure out why I like coming to these so much, and I'm going to kind of address my remarks more to mayors. I think it's because mayors are optimists, and that's a good thing, right? And you don't have to believe me. I actually wanted to pull a quick quote that I found in a book that actually Mayor Johnson referenced yesterday. You might recall him mentioning a book called The Metropolitan Revolution, written by Bruce Katz and Jennifer Bradley. Let me read a quick excerpt about how they define mayors. Members of this pragmatic caucus share common traits. They're impatient. They do not tolerate ideological nonsense or political bromides. They are frustrated with gridlock and inaction. They bristle at conventional pessimism and focus on constructive optimism. So, is that not the face of constructive optimism over there? So anyway, it seems to be a prerequisite for the job, and that's a good thing. That means I think mayors look at challenges and issues as opportunities, just looking for a solution. And that's where the Business Council comes in. 114 some members strong, like Tom said, just 14 new members in the last few months. And we are ready, willing, and able, when appropriate, to help mayors address their challenges in their cities. I want to, as Donovan alluded, I'm headed out the door. So as I rotate off, I want to congratulate Doug Palmer from Capspan as the new co-chair of the steering committee. If you'll notice, both of these gentlemen's names are DP, so for the next year or so, you're going to be dealing with DP squared as co-chairs of the steering committee. There also might be a couple colleagues of mine I want to recognize out in the audience. Friend Dave Snutcher with our building technologies business is here, and Dana Rasmussen, who runs our road and city mobility business. And those of you who go to the Innovations in Transportation session later this afternoon will get to hear more from Dana. So closing this out, I wanted to thank Mayor Foster for his leadership and his entertainment over the years, serving as the chair of the Business Council. I want to congratulate Mayor Goodman on being named the new chair. And Mayor Goodman, I think if you ever decide to hold a meeting, special meeting of the Business Council in your city, I'm sure you'll get a quorum to be there for you. So please think about that. And finally, I'd like to thank Tom Cochran. It's been a pleasure working with him, and Jerry Powell and Judy Reed. So I hope you all enjoy the rest of your conference, both the working sessions and the great entertainment that Mayor Rawlings and his folks have prepared for us, and have safe travels home. Thank you.
We are trying to straighten this thing out. I forgot to mention that Tom is from Siemens, and that's important. Siemens has been a long partner. It seems like you were here from the very beginning. And business chairs, you know, they work with us, and they love to know what's going on, if you know what I mean. And you need people like that watching your back. But he's a dear friend, and I really thank Tom so much for what he does to us, for us. And now there's some plaques here. I hope I don't give you Mr. Foster's, but they're here. This is to Tom Phillips. That's your name on it.
Very nice.
I believe you're the only one. You don't get one today.
No, I don't get one. That's fine.
All right, let's get that pictures here. Damn.
Come on, Mayor. Where do you want to do it? Over here or over here?
Where do you
What's
want
easier? This one?
I don't know.
Okay.
That's cool.
Thank you. Great.
Thank you. Okay, now I have to congratulate Doug Palmer, former president, good friend, still a mayor. He has been a president of this organization, and now he's out there helping us with the Business Council. He'll be our co-chair. Other steering committees, I'll ask you to stand and be recognized. Pete Meadows, Director of External Affairs for AT&T. Kimberly Schultz, Project Engineers, HDR. Sandra Sullivan, Vice President of Government and Industry Relations, Veolia Water, North America. Bobby Watson, Senior Vice President of Public Affairs and Strategic Planning, Hudson News. Thank you very much. And for the rest of the steering committee, Clinton Robinson, Peter Villegas, Nancy Bucard, Donna Stasio, American Airlines, Chris Thomas, CH3M Hill, Lynn Cutler, and Jen Cantrell. Thank you very much. And I'm just want to hold up this postcard on these tables. And this is announcing the deadline for our awards program, Excellent Partnerships Awards that we give out each year. And the deadline is October the 1st, 2014. And now I'd like to gladly turn the program back over to Mayor Foster.
Well, thanks, Tom. I want to add my thanks to and congratulations to Donovan and Tom for their leadership and service to the Mayor's Business Council and the Steering Committee. Now, it says here, I look forward to working with Donovan and newly elected co-chair Doug Palmer and the Steering Committee member in the coming years. But as I told you, I'm not doing anything that involves Palmer, so that's the way it goes. It's like that. You remember Men in Black? Remember when Tommy Lee Jones is going to quit and he says to Will Smith, he goes, "I'll be seeing you," and Will Smith holds up the neuralizer and he goes, "No, you won't." That's what it's like. I'm not coming back to haunt you like you did everybody else, Palmer. Well, maybe a little. We're now going to move to the discussion of early learning, and I'd like to call on President Mayor Kevin Johnson to begin this discussion. Kevin? Now, only he could do that, see?
All right, good morning to everyone. Before we get started, Bob, don't go too far. Before we get started on the next session, I'd like to honor the chair of our Business Council, our dear friend, Mayor Bob Foster. As you know and you've heard, he's leaving office and decided not to run again. And he has been somebody that has graced us over the years with his presence, his commitment, his humor. And I think he's a great example for all mayors here that we have a responsibility to this organization to make sure that we reach out to Business Council members. When they're here, they pay big dollars to be a part of it. They ask for not a lot from us as mayors other than to interact and touch us and have quick conversations. And you've been a tremendous example for all of us, Bob. So mayors, give Bob Foster another round of applause for his leadership.
Thanks,
So Bob began his career in public service early, serving as a staffer for the California State Senate and the California Energy Commission. Bob was instrumental in establishing statewide energy efficiency standards that are still in effect today. His commitment to energy improvement continued over the 20-year period. He was president of the Southern California Edison, where he developed the largest renewable clean energy program in the United States. In 2006, he was elected the 27th mayor of Long Beach and earned re-election in 2010. Within our organization, he served as the chair of the Environment Committee, a member of the advisory board, and a trustee. And since 2011, he has been chair of this Business Council. Please give Bob Foster one more round of applause. Come on, mayors, let's stand on our feet. This is one of our own. All right. As Bob moves on, I want to take this moment and announce that I've been able to appoint a new chair of the Business Council. And Bob's got some big shoes to fill. And this lady is dynamic, and she's used to filling her husband's shoes, so I think Bob's shoes won't be overwhelming for her to fill. Ladies and gentlemen, Marilyn Goodman, the mayor of Las Vegas. Carolyn, come on up. She's been a strong leader within our organization, advisory board member, vice chair of our educational excellence team. I know she will be a great chair for the Business Council. She's got good practice with her husband, Oscar, over there, who's hanging and done a great job as a mayor. I will tell you, Business Council members, her energy, her enthusiasm, her ability to galvanize mayors is going to be very welcome. So, Mayor, you are appointed, and thank you very much.
Just a few minutes. I'm Carolyn Goodman, not Marilyn. He's BJ. Wow. And then I had to look at Mr. Cochran's shoes. My Lord, what an introduction this is. But anyway, I have to tell you, it's wonderful to be from Las Vegas. As you all know, you've been suffering through the recession. We know about bringing business back. We have been praying in Las Vegas for a long time, however, for not a devastating earthquake, but a small earthquake in California, so we could have the ocean. It's great to be in Long Beach, but it would be so much better if it were Las Vegas Beach. And we know for all of the new business members, we have a lot of land in Nevada, and it's not Nevada, it's Nevada, and we would welcome you to open up a satellite business in our fair community. But we know what it's like with all of you. We know how business integrates with everything else, with environment, with health, with safety, and most importantly, with education. So I can assure you, I will do my very best, because I'm passionate about education too, to make sure that everything as we go, oh, now he's gonna show you. Could you please hold up a foot? God, I know his wife. I'm sure he picks out his own shoes. She would never do that. All right, I've had enough. It's all right. Thank you very much. I'm very honored. I know I can't fill his shoes. They're size 20. Mine are only size 9. So, but Bob, I will try. And thank you very much. And thank you for the appointment.
Johnston Murphy. I bought 2 pairs, one for my son. They look like chocolate.
Thank you.
One more round of applause for Carolyn, the mayor of Las Vegas. Goodman. All right, it is now my pleasure to kick off our Building an Early Learning Nation panel. This is a central issue in our time, ensuring that all of our children are provided with a world-class education and equipped to meet the challenges and opportunities of the 21st century. Over the past decade, there's been strong policy focus here in our conference, as well as policy on budget focus in all levels of government. Pre-K, making sure all of our children are ready for their formal years of education. Now, recent scientific research demands we direct our focus and our attention to the years before pre-K, the vital development years from birth to age 5. And that is the focus of our panel this morning. We're going to talk about what science is telling us, how we do what we need to do to make sure that our cities and communities build an early learning nation. At this point in time, I'd like to introduce my good friend, the mayor of Seattle, Mr. Ed Murray.
Well, thank you and good morning from the home of the Seattle Seahawks. I couldn't resist. It's my pleasure this morning to introduce Jackie Bezos, the president of the Bezos Family Foundation. Jackie and her husband founded this foundation in 2000 to focus on the issues of early education. She's worked with her 3 children and their spouses, and as I've learned recently, her grandchildren, to make the work of this foundation important. Now, like all of you, you get a script to talk about all the things that the person I'm about to introduce has done, but I'm not going to look at that script. I'm going to actually tell you a story. Like most of you, I've struggled with, as a public policy elected official in the legislature until recently, with the issue of education and our struggles to actually succeed. Our graduation rates are stuck, particularly in our largest city, particularly for those who are economically disadvantaged, and again, for those who are children of color. But we found recently in Seattle, as many of you have found around the nation, that there is a way to actually start changing that curve. And that curve, as the science is about to tell you, starts before kindergarten. And the Bezos Family Foundation and Jackie have been willing to do something that is going to change the future of our cities, and that is to focus on early learning. The work of this foundation, the research that they have invested in, the advocacy that they are participating in, We now know, based on almost 40 years of data, that if we follow the lead that Jackie has been blazing, that we can actually change those graduation outcomes regardless of economic circumstances or any other circumstances. So it is my honor to introduce somebody who is truly a leader, and like the Seattle Seahawks, a champion from the city of Seattle, Jackie Bezos. There you are.
Thank you, Mayor Murray, for the generous introduction. I'm deeply honored to be here this morning with all of you. Thank you for joining us for breakfast. I'm deeply honored because I'm in front of a bunch of people who have chosen public service as their personal priority. Thank you. I grew up at the feet of a public servant, my father, who worked for the federal government for 33 years. We are here this morning to talk about our nation's most valuable asset, young children. Babies are born swaddled in potential. For those of you who are parents and grandparents like I am, this may not be news, but here's what is. There is strong and powerful evidence that the foundation for lifelong success is built during the first 5 years of life. We know so much more now. Advances in neuroscience and imaging technology allow us to see how the developing brain is shaped in real time. Children are wired to learn from day one, forming neural connections at the astounding rate of 700 per second. And while the potential may be universal, we know all too well that opportunity is not. Patterns of underachievement, juvenile crime, bullying, and economic instability are seated in early childhood, and that is sobering. But I recently ran across a quote that gave me new hope. Change the beginning of the story, and you can change the whole story. We can change the beginning. We can do that. Something significant begins today, right here in this room. A movement to build an early learning nation, starting in your communities. What could that look like? What if all children, regardless of zip code or race or their parents' profession, were given a real chance to thrive? What if all children were surrounded by caring adults? What if their brains were protected from stress, violence, and instability? What if they showed up to school ready to learn, and throughout their education had fire in their eyes and a passion for learning? What if? We can catalyze this movement with a serious commitment to children from birth to 5. As elected officials, each of you has the opportunity and the assets to collectively build an early learning nation by 2025. If we put a man on the moon within a decade, we can certainly deliver on the commitment to raise our young well in the next 10 years. We'd like to share a short video with you. It paints a picture of communities and how vital they are to shaping the future of young children. Thank you.
What if you could take action to reduce crime, improve health and education levels, increase family incomes and state revenues, and improve the quality of life in communities throughout your state? Where would you begin? Science tells us that we may find the solutions to these complex social problems in early childhood, when the architecture of the brain begins to form. Brain architecture is built over time and shaped by experiences, starting in the earliest years of life. The most important experiences come from the environment of relationships that interact with each child: parents, extended family, and caregivers of all kinds. But serious adversity early in life can disrupt healthy brain development. Both brain architecture and behavior are increasingly difficult to change as individuals get older. So what happens early matters for a lifetime. Now imagine you can take action to improve the lives of children and the quality of life in this community. Where and when would that action be most effective? The links between policy, parenting, and brain architecture become much more clear when we can see how formative events and family and community environments affect child development. For example, policymakers want to make their communities safer, or improve children's learning, or reduce the cost of chronic health problems. A child raised in this environment may experience lower levels of stress and more opportunities for learning. That leads to sturdy brain architecture and a healthy stress response system, which prepare the child to achieve higher levels of literacy and other skills early in life, and later leads to improved school achievement and decreased dropout levels. Positive early experiences can also reduce levels of obesity, diabetes, and heart disease. Increased health and education levels can have positive effects across society, like reduced crime and increased income and tax revenues. Policies affect both individuals and communities, so making wise choices that support early brain development can improve health, behavior, and learning throughout life.
Huckleberry. I'm a journalist and a moderator of this panel here. Welcome to the most memorable session at the U.S. Conference of Mayors. I guarantee you that will be the case. It's great to be here amongst all you mayors who deal with tangible problem solving and constructive actual building and creating in your communities. It is scientifically proven, and this event will be one of the most scientifically grounded events of the entire conference. It is scientifically a fact that mayors answer most consistently, truthfully to the question, are you running for higher office? And the answer is usually no. And scientifically it has been shown that the reason this is the case is because they are actually performing a useful function in their communities, unlike other politicians. So congratulations for that. As a parent, I want to note just a couple of things here, and then I want to turn it to you and then turn it over to the panel. Children, as that brilliant video from the Bezos Foundation, and I thank Jackie Bezos and the Bezos Foundation for taking such an interest in this subject. It's an extraordinary investment that they've made, and it is up to us to take the ball, unlike what the Swiss were able to do this morning at the World Cup, and put it into the goal. We really have a responsibility here. Children, and I'm a father of 5, are naturally two things. I mean, there are many things, but in my experience as a parent, children are naturally, insatiably curious. And if you can mobilize and invest in that curiosity, huge potential can be realized in the course of their adulthood. But children have another sensor, a very deep and sensitive sensor, and that sensor is when adults drop the ball. Kids know it. Kids know, you promised me this. Oh, we're not doing that today? Oh, well, I guess it's another chance when an adult dropped the ball. So this panel, this session, is about the extent to which early investments can be paid forward and paid off in the later years. We have to, as a matter of policy, take those investments in early childhood learning and make sure that we do not drop the ball. All of you mayors are going to have parks and bridges and roads named after you and all that sort of thing. And that's an extraordinary legacy. And, you know, that's great. I mean, I'd love to have a bridge named after me, but it's not going to happen. No. It's too long anyway, but my name. But imagine if your legacy could be the names of the children who you invested in early childhood learning, who became the leaders of the next generation and who actually engaged the business in all of our communities, because there's nothing more important to business than investing in the brains and the potential of our children. Look into your own lives. Each of you has someone who invested in your curiosity, who saw what it was that you had. And each one of you has in your life someone who didn't drop the ball when there was that critical moment in adolescence or in early adulthood, who said, no, we're keeping that ball in the air. And all of you are here today because those investments were made for you. If we could institutionalize that, make it a matter of national policy, consider what we could do. So, we begin by introducing an extraordinary panel today. Dr. Patricia Kuhl is sitting next to me here, first member of our esteemed panel, co-director of the University of Washington iLab, the Institute for Learning and Brain Science. Dr. Kuhl also holds the Bezos Family Foundation Endowed Chair in Early Childhood Learning. She's the co-author of The Scientist in the Crib, Minds, Brains, and How Children Learn. Please welcome her. Directly to her left, he needs no introduction, Secretary of Education Arne Duncan. Thanks so much for being here. Great friend to mayors. He's made a vocal commitment to doing everything in his power to increase mayoral involvement and leadership in schools during his tenure. He is, by his DNA, a friend of mayors because, of course, he was the Chief Executive Officer of Chicago Public Schools, appointed by Mayor Richard M. Daley, and he taught him a thing or two, I have a feeling. Secretary of Education Arne Duncan, please. Thanks so much for being here. And also with us, Denver Mayor Michael Hancock, chair of the U.S. Conference of Mayors Educational Excellence Task Force, elected in 2011. Mayor Hancock has since made serving the children of Denver a priority in his administration. He knows about the difficulty of making investments that don't pay off immediately and getting constituencies to commit to investment that he understands passionately in his heart are worthwhile. He founded the Denver Education Compact to bring together city department and partner agency leadership to align city programs, services, and investments to best serve Denver's children. The resources he rallied will get 90% of Denver third graders at grade level by 2020. Please welcome Mayor Hancock. Thank you. Dr. Kuhl, please begin.
Thank you, John, for that wonderful introduction. How are your brains this morning, mayors? I hope they're wide open because I've got some very interesting things to tell you about the brain shown in the next slide. The brain of a child in the first 5 years is the most amazing learning instrument in the entire world. The babies will learn more in their first 5 years than they'll ever learn in any other 5-year period in their entire lives. The interesting thing for us and for you as community leaders is to understand that you have to build a brain. Brains come ready to learn, but it's we who have to supply the information that those brains will code. What I'm here to tell you this morning is that the tools of modern neuroscience that we've developed uniquely at the Institute for Learning and Brain Sciences in Seattle are showing us how brains work in action. In totally safe measurement technology devices, we're able to see brains in action as children are learning something. We can see the neural firing, and I'll show you today. We can also look at the structures of individual brains. We can now visualize over 1,000 areas in the brain and study each one to see how that brain area is responding to experience. Why are we doing all this work to study brain function and brain structure? It's a beautiful thing on its own, but it's really to help children and families. What we find when we talk to mothers and fathers all over the country is that they do not know how much the brain of the child is open to experience. It is a machine ready to be built. We need to help the children bring that knowledge to bear in their own brains, setting them up for school and for life. Let's look at a couple of facts of early brain development. What you see on this slide is the size of the brain at various points in development. Here's what's amazing. By the time we send our children to school at the age of 5, the brain is 92% of its total size. Think about that. And at the age of 3 years, it's 85% its total size. What's going on in the brain to make it grow so rapidly? Here's the main thing. At birth, all of us are born with 1 trillion neurons, basically all the neurons we're ever going to have. What's missing are the telephone wires that allow individual cells and areas of the brain to talk to one another. The job of early development, and dependent on experience, is the firing of these synapses, growing those telephone wires between all of the cells in the brain. And what you see there on the slide in the middle panel, by the age of 3 years, children have 3 times the number of telephone wires, the synapses that allow them to communicate, when compared to us. 3 times the number that we have. They're ready for anything and everything. And what happens between the age of 3 and the age of puberty is a systematic pruning of the connections that are not used and not needed. So as Jackie said, in the beginning, they're firing up at a rate of 700 synapses per second. But then there's a pruning that's going to take place. Why does pruning take place? Just as you prune a rose bush to make the remaining connections stronger, the brain prunes the connections that are not needed between 3 and puberty to make the remaining connections stronger. But the experiences children have in this early period, from birth to 5, this is what determines what connections will stay and what connections will be pruned. So it's very, very important stuff. The other important finding from brain science is that learning is time sensitive. The brain marches forward, and if experience doesn't happen at the right time, that kind of learning that the brain is waiting for doesn't happen. The best example of a critical period in development, meaning windows of opportunity open, and during those times the environment floods in and codes the brain and its structure. So the best example from the standpoint of biologists is the learning of a second language. Now, to read this curve, find your age at the bottom, okay? And look at your skill level on the vertical axis. And what do you see? You see that between birth and 7, children are geniuses at learning second languages. Their brains absorb it if they have the experience. But after 7, there's a systematic decline in your ability to acquire a second language. And by the time you're past 17, past puberty, and maybe everyone in this room is past 17, you're no longer able to do it with the same facility. Doesn't mean that you can't learn. It means that you don't use the same brain machinery. You won't learn it with the same facility. So what this illustrates is that there are critical windows of opportunity in development. We've just discovered one for reading instruction. I won't be able to describe it in detail, but there's a structure in the brain that has to be just at a certain stage for reading instruction to have its biggest impact for the child. So we're learning in the neuroscience laboratories when the windows open, what makes them open, and what causes them to narrow at particular points in development. Once we know this, we will be able to design schools to meet the needs of a human brain. And what we know is that children in the first 5 years have many windows open at different times. So a time-sensitive brain is what you have to keep in mind. Another principle coming out of the neuroscience laboratories is the importance of social interactions. Social interactions are the foundations for everything. There are 2 points to be made. The first, I think you understand that social emotional foundations are formed in the early period between children and their caregivers. It's the primary medium for trust, for healthy social interactions, for understanding others' perspectives. This does not happen in families where there's extreme stress all of the time. So social interaction is very, very important for a healthy mental, social, emotional outlook for your entire life. A second way in which social functioning and social interaction helps us is that it opens the gate to cognitive learning. We've always known in the past that social interaction is important for your social emotional health, but we didn't know that social interaction can open the gate for other cognitive learning. How did we know this? We did a study at 9 months of age for American babies who'd never been exposed to a second language. We know that the window is wide open at this time, and we wondered what would happen if we exposed typical 9-monthers, monolingual kids, to a second language. It was Mandarin Chinese in our first experiment. And as you see on the left, we had my graduate students and postdocs who naturally spoke Mandarin, learned it as children, sitting on the floor and playing with babies. They played with them for 12 sessions between 9 months and 10 months, when we know the window is wide open. We compared those 32 babies learning live from social partners to those learning from television. Beautiful DVDs that coded all of the same information on the same schedule, same dosage, same room, same everything, but coming from a television set. What did we discover? That the children who were exposed live socially, they learned so well they were exactly equivalent to the babies in Taiwan who had been listening to the language for 10 months. But the children who had been exposed to the video, while they crawled up to the video, they touched the video, they tried to grab the toys from the video, a couple of babies even kissed the video screen, they learned nothing, 0. They were equivalent to the control group who hadn't heard a word of Mandarin. They'd been exposed to English. So the brain is ready at this time for learning. Learning has to come in the right package, and the right package is a social environment. The social context is important. Not only for the babies, we know for them it's critical, but for all our children in schools. The social component is really important for us as well. Don't forget the importance of social communication. It lights up your brain, even as an adult. Okay, so if language is something that has to be learned early, the brain is open. Language growth requires input, meaning we have to talk to the kids during these critical periods. Here are the glaring facts. It depends upon what your family background is. So what you see on this graph are 3 curves. The red curve at the bottom, 525 words per hour, welfare families. Children in welfare families are not hearing nearly the number of words as those growing up in a middle-class working family or those growing up in professional families. These are huge, huge differences, and our brain measures show that it makes a huge difference. It's not only the quantity of words, though. It's not as though we want parents to wear a Fitbit on their wrist that counts words. It's the quality of interactions. Our studies recording what happens at home with little recorders over a long period of time, we can see that 2 factors predict future language development for children. The first is their use of parentese or motherese. Raise your hand if you've ever heard the term parentese or motherese. All right, a few, especially the women. Okay, well, let me tell you what it is. When we speak to children and young babies, we use a special tone of voice. I'm talking to you in adult-directed speech style. If I had a baby in my hands right here, my pitch would go up by an octave, and I'd say something like, "Hello, how are you? Let's open those big blue eyes." Okay, that's motherese, or parentese, fatherese. It's called many different things. We all do it when we talk to babies. They adore it. It's a wonderful signal for the human brain. The preponderance of motherese or parentese in the family over a four-day period predicts the growth of language to the point that children who are hearing lots and lots of motherese, particularly in one-on-one interactions, so the second component predicting language, was face-to-face communication. Not communication with huge groups where someone's not paying direct attention to the baby, but one-on-one, adult to child. In those circumstances, you're speaking motherese and one-on-one, twice the number of words by the age of 1 year. By the age of 2 years, you can see a 2- and then 3-fold increase in the number of words produced by the child under those circumstances. Input matters. Learning is time sensitive. Let me give you one more glaring fact, and then I'm going to show you some pictures of brains in action. One of the surprises from our studies, but it shouldn't be a surprise, is that socioeconomic status of a child's family predicts the growth and operation of a very important area of the brain called Broca's area. You can see Broca's in red on the right. Broca's is responsible for talking. It's responsible for reading. It's very, very important. You would think that it might be the intelligence of the child, the cognitive ability of the child, the social ability of the child that might predict at age 5 how much Broca's area is active and specialized, but no, it's a characteristic of the family. What is socioeconomic status, which is measured nationally by the education of the parents and the occupation of the parents? It's often associated with income, but income isn't measured. It is we think of it as a proxy for opportunities to learn. As the socioeconomic status goes down, typically there are fewer books in the home. You're further away from a library. There's fewer conversations at dinner time other than to say, do this, do that. They're not rich conversations about, what were you thinking when you said that? Well, what was Helen trying to say when she did this to Susie? They're not conversations about thinking. So what you see in this slide is a non-level playing field at the age of 5. The socioeconomic status of the child's family predicts the activity in a critical area for talking and reading. So this is something that's not the child's fault. The opportunities to learn were not there. So this is a glaring thing that we need to, all of you as mayors, really need to think about this. So let's go on to what the tools, the modern toolbox that we've developed over the last 10 years. We have a huge team, 11 people coming from all areas of the university focused on learning and the brain. We've developed a toolbox to really look at the baby brain for the first time. We're using a brand new machine. It looks like a hairdryer from Mars. It's a magnetoencephalography machine, MEG for short. Perfectly safe, non-invasive. When you sit under the hairdryer, we can see what's going on up there. Arnie Duncan visited. He didn't want to get into the machine, but he understood what it was doing to allow us to measure the brains of children. We're the first in the world to put a baby in an MEG machine because, again, it's perfectly safe and non-invasive. This is little Emma. And Emma's a 9-monther, and we can see she's listening to the sounds of different languages, words from different languages through insert earphones. The machine is totally quiet, not making any noise, and she's listening over insert earphones. She can move because we're tracking her head. We always know where the brain structures are. She can hold toys and manipulate them. We're going to be able to see all kinds of things with regard to development. But what are we seeing in Emma's brain? Well, we can see, as I said earlier, over 1,000 areas in her brain. I'm color coding only 150 here. We can understand exactly what those brain areas are doing. Each of them are specialized, some for faces, some for voices, some for social interaction. Various areas of the brain develop. We can chart the course, and we can see in all these areas how critical the input, the social stimulation, the number of words, the kinds of interactions that children are having. They all make a difference. And not only that, the individual areas are supported by a superhighway system that operates in the child's brain. What you see here in blue and pink, pink are the strongest fibers. These are superhighways that allow information from one area of the brain to travel to another. Absolutely vital information. The corpus callosum connects the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere because these two hemispheres of your brain do different things. You can see this 9-month-old baby, look at that superhighway structure that's already there. By the age of 5, look how strong that brain is. The pink areas are very strong by the time we send our children to school. And just for comparison's sake, here's your brain. Very, very connected, very, very connected. And importantly, to support all of the activities that you do as you operate in your day. Wiring the brain, look how far along it is by 9 months. Look what happens by the age of 5. That's dependent on experience. Now, we can put all of this together when we look at a 12-monther who's a monolingual child. We see all of the areas. We can isolate 2 that are very important for listening and talking. Auditory areas. That's what you're using right now as you listen to me talk. We were curious what was happening in the talking areas of the baby's brain. Broca's, again, is for talking. And the arcuate is the pathway that runs between them that allows them to communicate. Watch what happens. The bubbles are the firing of the neurons in the 2 areas, the auditory stuff, but also the surprise is Broca's area is firing. Broca's area is firing as that child listens to me talk. What does this mean? What does it mean to say that Broca's area is firing? What it means is that as you provide a child with a word, with stimulation, you're not only activating their auditory systems, you're engaging their brains. You're getting them ready to talk back. These children, we see this as early as 7 months. They can't even talk at 7 months, but their brains are getting ready to talk. They want to join the conversation. They want to volley back and forth. You serve them something, they want to volley back. So this is a very, very important finding, that baby brains are engaged by us talking to them. I'll say one thing more, and that is about bilingual brains and parental education. Many of you in the next decade as mayors will face a lot of children coming into school who are speaking a language other than English. All I can tell you is children who are hearing both languages at home, their brains cope beautifully with bilingual input. They're not only more flexible with regard to their language learning abilities, they're also more flexible cognitively. In tests on the babies and adults as well, children who are raised bilingually, switching always between these two languages, they can invent new solutions to problems more readily than we can, or the children who are monolingual, because their brains are exercised to be creative. And finally, we're creating, because we know that people don't know this information, we're creating online modules that we have 4 done. They're going to be free to everyone. They're on our website. We will have 50 to 60 by the time we're done. We want everyone to have this information because all of the children and all of their parents desperately need it. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for all that you do to make the world a better place.
Thank you, Dr. Kuhn. And I want to thank Mayor Johnson for volunteering to have the adult brain pictures of his brain, actually. That was very brave of him. Secretary of Education, Arne Duncan.
It was fascinating to visit her lab. I was very scared what they would not find in my brain, so I passed on that. But no, please give Patricia another round of applause. They're doing extraordinary work. Just a couple quick points, and look forward to having the conversation that in our administration, 2.5 years to go, spent a lot of time thinking about what we can do to improve education, not for the next 2.5 years, but the next 2.5 decades. And obviously, expanding access to high-quality early learning opportunities is absolutely at the top of that list. And if we could accomplish that, I think the gift to the country and the gift to our nation's families would be extraordinary. If we don't do that, we're going to continue to struggle as a nation. And John challenged us to be fact-based. Just walk you through 2 quick facts, and most of you probably already know this stuff. Dr. James Heckman, who's someone else who's a lot smarter than me, a Nobel Prize-winning economist at the University of Chicago, has studied what this investment means over time, and has found that for every dollar we as a nation invest in high-quality early learning opportunities, we get back $7, a 7-to-1 ROI. Less teenage pregnancy, less crime, less dropouts, more high school graduates, more folks going to college, more folks going on into the world of work. And I ask all of you like us who live on public, scarce tax dollars, in how many programs do you get a 7-to-1 ROI? And I would bet it's not a lot. The second fact that drives me every day and keeps me up at night is that across the country in all of our communities, the average child coming from a disadvantaged community, Patricia talked about that, the average child starts kindergarten at 5 years old, a year to 16 months behind. And as a nation, quite frankly, we do not do a great job of catching them up. And I think you can draw a direct line from those babies who don't have access to high-quality early learning to your future high school dropouts, to the future adults who you'll be incarcerated down the road. And so we have to collectively break that cycle. 2 quick asks of all of you. One is to continue to lead by example. And I know I'm going to miss lots of folks, but so many mayors here are stepping up. Right here in Dallas, Mike Rollins has had a campaign to increase access, 3,000 more young people going, 3,000 more young children having access to pre-K. San Antonio, Mayor Castro increased sales tax, trying to go to universal access. Mike Hancock will talk in a minute. He's done a lot to increase quality. It can't just be about access, increasing quality. And he's trying to go to 3-year-olds in year-round early childhood ed as he goes into the fall. Huge step in the right direction. Mayor Walsh in Boston, looking to double access there. Salt Lake County has gone to an interesting program of social impact bonds to pay for this. So as we always hear, and mayors are so pragmatic, so thoughtful, just leading by example, we need you to do that. Secondly, this has to become a national priority. And we've built this very interesting coalition. We have hundreds and hundreds of tough-minded, hard-headed CEOs who are backing this because they understand ROI in a way that other folks don't always. We have military leaders, generals and admirals who worry about the lack of military preparedness and understand we have to start with our babies. faith-based community has stepped up in a very important way. And for me, very surprisingly, but very positively, we have many, many states attorneys who say we're tired of locking people up at the back end and would much rather invest at the front end. So we have lots of folks from many different walks of life who might not agree on any other issue who are coming together. We have succeeded in making this a bipartisan issue in the real world. We talked about mayoral leadership. We now have 30 governors in tough economic times, actually more R's than D's, who are putting their money behind expanding access, and we think that's fantastic. The second ask for you is to help us continue to build a national coalition so this becomes a national priority. And for all the progress that mayors are making and governors' investment across the country, we still have huge, tremendous unmet need. And what breaks my heart as I travel the country is in many different states, 10,000, 15,000, 17,000 families on waiting lists. So these are families who want the best thing for their children, who want them to get off to a good start in life, and we're simply not giving them the opportunity. Our goal, the President's goal, is to go from about 1.1 million children with access to high-quality pre-K, basically doubling that to 2.2. That is an investment. That cannot be done just simply on the cheap or through reallocation. We have to use every dollar wisely. But as a nation, we have to decide this is the right investment to make. We have to get out of the catch-up business because we don't play that catch-up business very well. So if you guys can continue to lead by example, if you can help talk to your congressmen, talk to your senators, say this is not about politics, this is not about ideology, this is about giving our babies a chance to get off to a good start in life. This is about strengthening families. This has to be a 0 to 5 continuum. And if we do that, so many of the challenges we all face and you guys deal with every single day, social ills, I am absolutely convinced go away. So I think we have a moment of opportunity with a president who gets this, with a majority of governors backing this, with so many mayors providing leadership. If we can just get Congress to get past this dysfunction and start to work together on one thing together, I can't think of a better topic than dramatically expanding access to high-quality early learning opportunities. Thank you so much.
Mayor. Thank you, John. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to go quickly as well because I think the quality of Dr. Cole's presentation was phenomenal. Don't you agree? It just blew us away. And I want to just get to a couple points because the Secretary, I think, underscored really the fundamental power that mayors have to really pursue this issue with a great deal of gusto. Let me say just a couple quick anecdotes. I've got it first to do something that ever since February 2nd, I have promised to do after the Seattle Seahawks showed up in New York and just punched the Broncos in the mouth. My good friend Ed Murray, Mayor Murray. Listen, Ms. Bezos started with a quote that I use every time I speak to parents. While potential is universal, opportunity is not. And as a parent, as the first teachers of our children, I recognize the unparalleled power and opportunity we have to make sure our children are given every opportunity. We're the first ones to open the door of opportunity for our kids. When my wife and I were expecting our first child, I had a happenstance meeting with a woman who would turn out to be my mentor in this issue of education and early childhood education. Her name is Anna Jo Haynes, and she happens to be the guru of ECE and early childhood education in Denver. I met with her, and she looked at me, and she said, as I told her we were expecting our first child, how excited I was, she said, listen, I need you to go home tonight, and I want you to talk to your wife's stomach. And I remember thinking, looking at her going, what is wrong with this woman? And she said, no, I'm serious. I want you to go home. I want you to talk to your wife's stomach. I want you to sing to your wife's stomach. Every day, I want you to talk to your wife's stomach. She said, the brain of your child is developing now, and now's a great time to begin, Dr. Cole, to begin to train your kid in language and to prepare them. Give them a personality. And I did that. And I was amazed as our kids matriculated how quickly they were always at the top of the percentile in tests and visits with the doctor. That was my first lesson in understanding the power and importance that I play with my children. That same experience I carry over as mayor. And so I'm here to share with you 3 things that Denver is doing or has done, and then we'll go to Q&A that I think will be a powerful opportunity. And I want you to keep in mind Dr. Cole's presentation as I share with you these 3 things that we've done. In 2006, then Mayor John Hickenlooper proposed a ballot measure in Denver. I was sitting president of the Denver City Council at the time, and he asked me to co-chair this initiative. It failed twice at the ballot previously, but he said we're going to go after a tax to provide every 4-year-old in the city of Denver access to quality early childhood education. Again, think about Dr. Cole's presentation. Yesterday, those of us who attended the Educational Task Force meeting, and Jim Shelton, Deputy Secretary for Department of Education, came, and he gave us a presentation on the My Brother's Keeper program that the President proposed just several months ago. And he said the underlining opportunity we have here, and the very first words of his mouth were early childhood education. Mm-hmm. The very first words out of his mouth. We're going to combat the violence and the challenges facing our young men of color were early childhood education. This preschool tax, which charged 12 cents for every $100 spent in Denver, would give an opportunity ECE, quality ECE, for every 4-year-old in the city of Denver. Passed. Barely, but it passed. Today, in 2014, it has served 34,000 4-year-olds. $50 million has been invested. Those 34,000 kids who are now 3rd graders, the first ones who have went through the program are now 3rd graders. 70% of them have tested exceeding or proficient on their education exams at 3rd grade. Higher than their peers who did not go through the program. Higher than their peers who did not go through the program. They tested at just over 55%. So the program is working. It sunsets in 2016. But the polling of the program was so powerful that we decided just last week to put it on this November's ballot for reauthorization. And what we decided to do was to make the program year-round so kids would not have to leave preschool, their education program, in the summer. But not only that, we're now going, Dr. Cole, to 3-year-olds. We're going to include 3-year-olds in the program. So this new money will give us a huge opportunity to expand the program. Secondly, our Denver Public Library system is launching what we call Earlier It's Easier, which will give parents the tools on how to prepare their newborns with the language skills necessary. They'll talk about how simple activities like talking, singing, playing can support literacy and development of their children, their babies, their newborns. They will also help with the limited English-speaking parents and help them understand how they can actively engage and support their own child's learning, skill building in Denver. And then finally, many of you know that we had what we call the Mayor's Tour of Educational Excellence Tour, and our president, Kevin Johnson, was part of it. Mayor Tavares from Providence, Rhode Island, Mayor Julian Castro out of San Antonio, and I went to each other's cities, and we studied best practices. While we were in Providence, one of the most powerful programs that I learned about was a program called Providence Talks. And basically what it is that parents are given a little device called Lena. And they are taught to talk to their children like adults, like Dr. Cole told us. I mean, talk to them instead of going goo goo gaga, boo boo baba. Talk to them in complete words and sentences. And this Lena device records it. And they take it back into the program, and it can tell you how many language words your kid has been exposed to. They have seen an exponential growth of the exposure of language of children, particularly of low-income families. It was a program that I decided we would adopt in Denver, only to go back and find out that a nonprofit called Colorado Bright Beginnings was already moving forward with a program called Denver Talks Back, and it is modeled after Providence. And so while Denver won't be leading the program, I've agreed as mayor to use the Boley pulpit to be the chief promoter of this effort, because I think it's a huge opportunity, again, keeping in mind what Dr. Cole just shared with us. So let me go to my seat and just say that mayors have a powerful opportunity to be the convener. Mayors have a powerful opportunity to be the spokesperson for key initiatives. We can provide city-owned buildings for early childhood education programs. We can set the standard for quality programming. And we can also be bold in our leadership. There are tremendous tools for mayors to lead on this effort. And I'll tell you, as a mayor, as an elected official, I have learned that there hasn't been a more powerful and more audacious initiative that I can be involved in than to make sure that every child, starting at a very early age, gets a head start and enters kindergarten ready to learn. Thank you all very much, and let's go to Q&A. Thank you for that.
Yes, great.
Mayor, doctor, secretary, let's start looking at the paradigm here. How do we go from because we have really a sort of a perfect confluence of needs in the United States. We have a need for childcare. We have a need for parental support in two-income households, whether we're talking about high-income or low-income households. We have needs there. We also have the needs that you talked about in terms of brain development in those early years. Why can't the government get involved in early childhood education, parenting help, daycare, as a matter of entitlement and infrastructure, as opposed to a Head Start model where you get into these debates over income redistribution and it's all about welfare, and then you're smack dab in the middle of the divisions right in the House of Representatives. Mayor Hancock?
Well, I think it's sitting through presentations like Dr. Cole. I mean, once you see presentations like that, you come to understand there is nothing more important as mayor that I can do to kind of level the playing field. Everything we do with regards to education and making sure kids enter kindergarten prepared to learn kind of breaks down all the partisan barriers, all the conversation, the ideological battles that the secretary talked about become mute and quite frankly dumb because there's no way around the argument. And so we got to use this very basic academic conversation about how we prepare our kids for education and how they hit the ground running. And a lot of to the point that the secretary made, if we do that, the ills that we deal with every day as mayors, the things that keep us up at night, the police, the calls from the police chief and from your safety directors who tell you what happened tonight at this event or what have you, begin to decline because we begin to understand when kids are ready to learn and they enter kindergarten ready to learn, they're exponentially ready to read a grade level by third grade, and those are the kids that we're able to test. Your 7-year-old graph or language graph that you showed was powerful. If that's not convincing to bring down those barriers and use government as a way, particularly mayors are the most visible, arguably the most visible people in the city, to use that bully pulpit, nothing else will. But I think we keep the conversation academic and commonsensical.
Secretary, how do we bring the income disparities that are so talked about as a huge problem in the United States together, to invest together as full communities in entitling young children this kind of early access to education as a national priority, not simply as a compensatory priority?
Yeah. So obviously, if we want to reduce those inequities, if we want to increase social mobility, the only way to do it is through education. It's the only way to get there. And again, starting with our babies is the right way to do it. The challenge, John, I just always try to be very frank, is just the politics of this right now at the national level. Again, mayors get it, governors get it. And what is so hard for me is I can't tell you how many of my Republican friends come up to me on the side, come up to me after the State of the Union and say, Arnie, you're doing exactly the right thing. Our families need it, our communities need it, but I'm so sorry, I can't help you. And what we need is political leaders to have courage and to lead with both their heart and their head. And until this has to be, folks in this room are much more politically astute than me. I think the only way we break through this has to be an outside-in strategy. Washington right now is too broken, but if there's enough pressure, if there's enough coalition building of folks going to their political leaders in both parties saying this is an investment, it's the best investment we can make, that will break this through. One other fact I should have mentioned earlier, United States relative to other industrialized nations, we rank 28th in access to high-quality early learning opportunities. It is a dismal record. And some of my toughest conversations are my colleagues, other education ministers from across the globe, and they ask me, they say, how come your country doesn't care about its babies? Mm-hmm. And I don't have an answer for them. They can't comprehend a nation as strong and as wealthy as we are, that we refuse to give our babies a good start in life.
All right, so this is why this is the most memorable conversation, memorable panel you're going to have at this conference here. We are at a moment, Doctor, where we can jump from your lab with the pretty pictures and the fabulous machines and the gorgeous little baby seats that measure brain activity, and we can prototype in kindergartens, in 3-year-old pre-Ks, in 2-year-old classrooms, even in kitchen environments in people's homes, the kinds of tools that you're developing, where are those prototypes going to come from? Who are the communities that can maybe participate in exactly the kind of prototyping that you're getting ready to do now?
Right. You know, the science is showing us that from day one, the brain is open and ready for us to fill that brain with all the exciting structure that it needs to face school and life. What's fascinating to me is I travel all over the world. I've been in Asia lately, in Shanghai and in Hong Kong and Taiwan, but also in the Scandinavian countries and in France. All of these countries are acting on this information. They seem to be acting in a way that's faster than we are. Seeing the schools in Hong Kong was an absolute shock. There's a school called Infants, Toddlers, and Twos, trilingual school in which the kids are dissecting fish, and they're all play. It's all play. But they're doing the equivalent of astronomy and science and math and language and reading. They're happy kids engaged in activities that are enriching their brains. So it really is a country's decision, that not only the government, all of us, people, parents are the initial teachers. This is a mindset. This is knowledge that parents ought to be armed with. A lot of parents just don't know that they're on the front lines with the kids and they can develop this brain by acting on the right information, talking to their children, loving their children, giving their children interesting experiences. That's what's going to build brains.
But if parents, mayors, secretaries of education, school board officials want to contact the Bezos Foundation or the University of Washington or some of the other support organizations, there are answers to questions of what can I do now in my preschool.
Yes.
There are answers.
Right.
That information is available.
That's available.
Right. And that's true at your level too.
We do, and we're proud to. We've invested $1 billion in this. We have another $250 million coming out this fall to states and cities. And what we want is to have a number of proof points around this country. So 10, 20, 50 cities where folks are committed to going to scale. And if we can demonstrate the long-term results that we're seeing in Denver and seeing in other places, I think that forces the nation to accelerate the pace of change. And I do worry tremendously about our children being at a competitive disadvantage relative to other children in a globally competitive economy, and it's simply not fair.
Mayor Hancock, I was thrilled to learn that your campaign strategy is talking to people's stomachs, that was helping in getting, it's really amazing. I'm looking forward to seeing how that works in 2016. But when you called to get answers, I want to implement this policy, what are the tools I need? You get calls back. There are sources of information where you can take that information and make it into policy, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we know so much more now than even in 2006 when this initiative passed, our tax initiative passed in Denver. When I say barely, I made that point because adults just didn't simply, I mean, people had made a connection with quality early childhood education to the achievement of our kids at 3rd grade. I mean, today, there are many more of us who are talking about the connectivity, hearing presentations like Dr. Cool. Is it Cole?
It's Cool.
Cool. So that cool presentation that she did, which was
Good
so
segue.
informative.
That was
Absolutely.
masterful.
Yeah.
That was really masterful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But that's the power. But today, as we go back to the public, not only are we more educated or better educated on the issue, and there's much more scientific data out there, I now have 34,000 children I can point to and say, those are the reason why. These are the reason why. These are the people who can stand up and say, I'm a product of the DPP program, and it worked for me. And the parents can talk about the impact. And we also have data now that says 70% of these kids are exceeding or are testing proficient, whereas their peers who did not go through the program are not.
And it's not even just going to be the proliferation of hands over the next few years. Mayor Murray, how many people have come to your office and said, I moved to the city of Seattle because the Seahawks won the Super Bowl? That would be about 0. And how many have ever said, I moved to Denver because of the Broncos?
Well, we've got several.
Yeah, right. Yeah. They're all former Seahawks players, right?
Yeah.
But how many people move to a city because of the quality of the schools, because of the commitment to early childhood education, because parents know that in this community they're going to get the support they need to make exactly the kinds of commitments and investments that we know scientifically are possible? That is a reason to move to a community.
John, if I can make a point, and by the way, DeMarcus Murray moved to Denver because of the Seahawks, actually. Aqib Talib as well. But let me say that we had a neighborhood in Denver that was struggling. And we did a kind of and Mayor Johnson knows this because we took him through it. We had a wholesale redevelopment of these schools that were failing, perennially failing schools. When those schools started turning around, a housing developer called me excited about the fact that all their units had sold out. They were building them. He said, we couldn't move them a year ago, but now the schools are testing and showing improvement. People are moving in for the schools. So to the point that Mayor Johnson made yesterday, great schools create great communities, not the other way around.
All right, I want to bring, first of all, let's thank this panel for being so candid, so enthusiastic, so committed to this issue. And I'll bring Jackie Bezos out for some closing comments here. Thank you all very much.
Thanks to everybody on the panel. It was amazing. It's clear that we all have assets to bring to this issue as individuals, as communities, as community leaders, as mayors, as government officials. We all have something to contribute to an early learning nation. One thing we can't overlook is the child's greatest asset, parents. Science tells us that parents play a critical role in their child's development, but not all parents know this. What if we could arm parents with the understanding and the tools that support from day one the building of their child's brain? We are going to close today with a very brief preview of a new initiative of the Bezos Family Foundation. It's called Vroom. It's an outside-in effort. As Secretary Duncan was saying, we need something from the outside. And we don't have to wait for policy. We're doing it right now. Vroom takes the best research from child development and neuroscience and puts it directly into the hands of parents. This is the Foundation's contribution to creating an early learning nation by 2025. And we hope that you will join us. So there's these stickers right outside the door. Please be an advocate for Early Learning Nation 2025. Thank you.
Yes, and I'm going to hang up the jackets, okay? I'm really rushing all the time. I don't have enough time just to sit down with them.
Being a full-time mom and having a full-time job, it's not easy. I always worry, am I doing enough with my kids? Am I doing the important stuff that they need?
Can't imagine what is in here.
It feels really powerful.
You guys.
You already have all it takes.
Maybe I just didn't look at it that way because I always want better.
You put your feet in them?
No.
No? I know that I can do it.
Which one is rough?
This one.
It's amazing the little things that we do, we don't even realize we're teaching our kids.
You did it, Mom.
Yay, good job.
You don't really think of brain development at that young of an age, you know, when you're 3 months old.
What a way to start off our morning. I'm going to bring Bob up in a second to close us out. But if you're a mayor out there, can you raise your hand? It's awesome. Give yourselves a round of applause because, yesterday in my inauguration speech, we talked about being Cities 3.0, and we talked about being leaders that look beyond the partisanship, that we decided that education was going to be our top priority. And we know from this data here that it starts at a really, really young age. And I would like all the mayors in the room to stand who believe that universal or access to early childhood education should be something that we're fighting for in our city. So mayors, just please stand by a show of support. So, Mrs. Bezos, John, Dr. Cool, Secretary Duncan, we want to let you know, as mayors, that we stand with you, whether it's a Democrat or a Republican. Our children know no difference, and our commitment is real. So thank you very much, mayors. Bob, I'll let you close us out.
About a round of applause for Kevin Johnson for his commitment. Thank you, Kevin. Well, I want to thank Mrs. Bezos and our entire panel for a very intriguing panel discussion this morning. And before we go, I did want to acknowledge a former president of this organization and a former mayor of my city, Beverly O'Neill, right over there. Let's say good morning, Beverly. And I want to close this out. As you know, you guys had heard a lot of scientific information this morning. Well, I want you to know I'm going to give you the last piece of scientific information that I'll be involved in on this business council. We did a scientific survey, and we found, this is about longevity, so listen up. Women who carry just a few extra pounds live a lot longer than the men who comment on it. It's a proven fact. And I think Hancock's been talking for about 2 hours to my stomach, actually. Long conversation. In any case, I want to thank you for the experience of being here. I want to thank you for all you do every day to make this country better and your cities better. And without objection, we are adjourned.